Welcome into another episode of the Young Terps podcast. Ahmed Gafir and Mason Viner talking Terps in Indiana. Ahmed, this has been a game that everyone's highlighted over the past couple of years as kind of that swing game for Maryland, but this year the Terps a clear 14 to 14 and a half point favorite.
Yeah, obviously, there's been a lot of exciting games in the past, a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of one-score games. I think this one feels a little bit different on paper. Obviously, mentioned, Maryland's a pretty heavy favorite. Have a chance to set a couple different records this weekend. Obviously, going 5-0 for the first time in 22 years. So we'll definitely see, and it'll be interesting to see if Maryland's able to cover this weekend.
Yeah, it sure will. And before we get too far into that, this podcast is brought to you by Watercrafters. Located in Gaithersburg, Maryland, Watercrafters has been providing swimming pool services and supplies to Montgomery and Howard County for the past 41 years. Watercrafters' highly skilled service staff can open and close your pool, as well as provide new equipment, repairs, and weekly service. The Gaithersburg retail showroom has everything for your swimming pool, including chemicals, parts, and fun accessories. Visit Watercrafters in the Gaithersburg Air Park or online at watercrafters.com. Ahmed, getting a little bit more into it. You mentioned it. First 5-0 starting. All right, can cut that. Ahmed, you mentioned the 5-0 start for the first time since 2001. Maryland also with a bunch of other accomplishments, a bunch of boxes that Locks can check on his program building list.
Yeah, obviously, like I mentioned, first chance to move to 5-0 for the first time in 22 years, but get a chance to move to 2-0 for the first time in Big Ten play ever. First time to do so, 2-0 since 2014, and 4-0 for the first time in 13 years. So, another little caveat, you get a chance to win the third straight against Indiana. So, like you said, you just a lot of positive momentum for this program going into Week 5. I think a lot of fans kind of we're happy to see, Maryland kind of take care of non-conference play, being able to get through that. Obviously, not completely pretty, but obviously, I think a chance for Maryland to continue to set these feats, especially after going to back-to-back bowl games, winning those back-to-back bowl games, going to have a chance this year to go to the third consecutive bowl game that hasn't been done in a while too. So, like I said, just goes back to the positive buzz that Mike Loxley's building going into year 5 of the program.
Yeah, and Indiana kind of on the other side of that. Coach Allen really been struggling. It seems like, the wagons are starting to circle around him and his program. A lot of, I don't even know what you want to call it, fan hate for that we saw around here not too long ago for Walt Bell, the offensive coordinator, Indiana. The Hoosiers also, I guess the most interesting stat that I think's out here, the fewest returning starters with 8 and combined total starts on their team, 136 in the country, 21 transfers for Indiana, 18 of those from other FBS programs. And, well, that's shown on the field mostly last week when a real bad Akron team had a kick from about 30-something yards to win the game in regulation. Indiana ends up with a 4 overtime victory in that. And if you saw the video from Indiana social media, it looked like they won the Super Bowl when Coach Allen got into the locker room.
Yeah, obviously you got a chance to go in. They had a chance to end it a little bit earlier. I think it was in the third overtime. Quarterback missed a wide open receiver in the end zone. I don't even think there was another defender, anyone on that half of the field. Obviously it was a very ugly game to watch. Caught the last bit of it last weekend, but like you said, just I think this is kind of the youth movement for Indiana. Tom Allen, that Hoosier program did really well a couple of years ago, kind of being that Big Ten surprise team when they had Michael Penix in his freshman year. And since then, the sustained success for the Hoosiers program just really hasn't been there. But a lot of familiar faces coming to College Park this weekend.
Yeah, on both the defense and offensive side of the ball, Chad Wilt, the defensive coordinator, I guess is he the co-defensive coordinator for Indiana? Spent a lot of time with the Maryland program. Actually, when they had a lot of success, I was just looking at his notes on his Indiana site. I mean, he's got Andre Monroe stats on there, Darius Kilgo stats on there. I mean, it's plastered with Maryland's defensive line from the Edsel era that actually went on to have a bunch of successful NFL careers and still kind of holds a bunch of spots on Maryland's record book. And that is the strength of Indiana as of right now, is the defensive side of the ball, scoring defense, 19 and a half points per game. Total defense is up there, only giving up 342 yards a game. I mean, strong obviously in both categories against the run and the pass, but Indiana hasn't seen a team quite as gelled as Maryland. They did play Ohio State in what was a close three-quarter game that they ended up losing by 20, but uh, this might be the one thing that holds Indiana in this game.
Yeah, I think obviously when you kind of look at that Indiana front seven, I think they have a couple pieces there. Obviously, Aaron Casey's the kind of he's the engine and the heart and soul of that defense. Sits third in the Big Ten, 14th nationally in total tackles, coming in with 41 through 4 games. Big force in the just at the line of scrimmage, tied for first with 5 TFLs as well. Andre Carter, he's another guy. He's been very disruptive through the first 2 weeks of the season. He amassed 4 tackles for loss, and then it comes into this weekend with 5. So I think that just kind of that Indiana front is going to be the kind of the storyline on that side of the ball. And Chad, well, you mentioned just kind of him and the success that he had at Maryland, and he got a chance to work with Mike Locksley. That was I think they overlapped for I think it was 2 3 seasons during the Edsel tenure, and like you said, and just to credit to Chad Will, he actually ended up recruiting the younger brother one of my friends, after he left Maryland, he went to Army, and the family friend just had said really good things to say, just kind of about Chad Will, just about him from beginning to end, just how he recruited him, things like that. So that's always kind of stuck with me, just kind of about him as a person. So definitely will be a welcome face to see back in College Park this weekend.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, from what I've heard from the players of that era, they really enjoyed their time. I mean, when they had Locks and they had Wilt was probably the strongest part of the crossover of that program, and you just see it with the guys and the success they've had at the next level and the success they had at Maryland. Uh, Clearly was a face that I don't think Locks would have, would mind having back in College Park if the opportunity came up.
Yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see just kind of what happens with Indiana this year. I think obviously, like we talked about, just kind of with that youth movement, does that kind of buy Tom Allen a little bit more time if they don't end up going back to a bowl game? I think you just kind of look at the trajectory of the program. If it's kind of stalled, a little bit stale in terms of just development and trajectory and whatnot. Like I said, but it'll be interesting. I think there's a lot of young talent, but obviously when you look at that Indiana defense, Aaron Casey, obviously, like I said, I think that's going to be the engine to go. And the guy that Maryland's offensive line that the blockers they need to be mindful of. He was the first name that Mike Locksley talked about when talking about that Hoosiers defense. So I think just kind of getting eyes on him, getting hands on him at the point of attack. I think that's going to be key, and will probably be the difference, or maybe the key deciding factor, and just how successful this Maryland rushing attack is this weekend.
Yeah, and you mentioned something, and we'll talk about the Indiana offense in a second. That really has stuck out to me. I mean, over the past week, I'm pretty sure everybody, especially the two of us being from Montgomery County, and a lot of kids going to Indiana and knowing people that have gone there, talking to some of them and asking them if they were going to come to the game this weekend, if that they had any opinions I could maybe share on the pod, anything that added just a little bit more to it. Almost all of them were like, it seems like the department as a whole is fine as long as they pretty much just have a football team. Like they don't really the contract buyout that would be there. Everyone's talking about Tom Allen possibly, moving on or being asked to move on at the end of the season. Pretty much everybody that I've talked to says they're just all in on basketball, trying to push a ton of NIL dollars towards basketball, get that
Yeah.
program back where it needs to be. And as long as they play, somewhat competitive week one game against Ohio State and maybe get to 6 wins, that's kind of the line. So if you ever think Maryland's out on football, here's another team just to look at and just say, yeah, we care a little bit more than some other teams in the league.
Yeah, my next door neighbor, he's IU grad as well, and I feel like the way he describes about football, the way he describes football is just something to keep your time busy, occupy your time before basketball season starts. So yeah, that definitely is a basketball school. So we'll see. Maryland also got tabbed as a basketball school yesterday too. So we'll see. Hopefully the better basketball school win.
Yeah, and well, I think our basketball school's a little bit ahead because, well, we don't have a guy named Walt Bell calling our plays anymore. It has been a really, really interesting week for Walt Bell coming out of the Akron game or debacle for Indiana fans. He described in his media availability, which they have coordinated media availability on Mondays for Indiana football, described the team as a run first team, yet the play calling really has not gelled a lot like the end of his tenure at Maryland.
Yeah, obviously, kind of after that tenure from Maryland, I think he was kind of viewed as maybe that up and coming, that offensive mind, that that cutting edge next generation kind of wave of football. Then obviously UMass, very tough place to win just in general in college football, probably one of if not the toughest job in FBS. But then obviously went to Indiana, and it's been a couple rough weeks for them. Obviously, the play calling's been under scrutiny, something that Maryland fans have they've also kind of saw when he was at College Park as well. And obviously, he isn't the only familiar name. Anthony Tucker, he was another guy. He was with the program. He joined when DJ Durkin came as head coach. He was a running backs coach before departing for UCF. So a little bit of familiarity on that side of the ball too. And won't be as much in terms of scheme and things like that, but obviously just two former assistants heading back to College Park. And Walt Bell definitely has a young quarterback with a lot of potential that he can kind of work with there.
Yeah, I would say that. When I look at the team for Indiana on the offensive side of the ball, you see some of the things that you saw at Maryland when they didn't have their full stretch of running backs that they really were able to just kind of go with the Ty Johnson or Lilo Harrison. It really it sticks out like that. Yeah, I think your clear best player is the running back, which is Jalen Lucas for Indiana, and they're trying just to find ways to creatively get him the ball at this point, and they really want to run between the tackles, and that's really not there. If you look at, I think you really see two similar teams. You mentioned the talent on both sides of the ball, but right now the program's just not there. They're scoring 21 points a game. They struggled last week to move the ball really up until overtime. The first half of that game, if you're really into Maryland football and you want to watch what we're going to see on Saturday, if you look at the first half of that game, you just see basically a lost offense, and I think that is what the picture really is for Indiana right now.
Yeah, under center for Indiana is Taven Jackson, the younger brother of Indiana superstar on the basketball side, Trace Jackson Davis, Tennessee transfer. So he's going to be the guy under center. He's among the league leaders in passing yards per attempt, passing yards per completion. So when you kind of look back at what Mike Loxley said on Tuesday in terms of him being probably the quarterback to challenge Maryland's defense vertically so far this season, there's validity to that. Obviously, like we said, they had chances last week against Akron to really put the game away earlier. Just miscues, really offensively, just kind of don't look really in rhythm, in sync. So Maryland's defense, the secondary, I think largely has been able to buckle down and whatnot. But they've shown that the miscommunications, especially along the sidelines, those still have shown up a little bit. The adjustments after the fact have been good, but will be something to watch. But you mentioned Jalen Lucas. Obviously, he's going to be the engine to go makes that Indiana offense go the same way Aaron Casey on the other side of the ball. Make sure that Indiana defense is in position there. And Jalen Lucas sits second in the Big Ten in all-purpose yards per game with, like you said, over 110 yards. Big factor. He actually leads the team in receptions over Cam Camper, who seems to be that go-to wide receiver there. So in terms of, in addition to what Jalen Lucas can do with the ball in his hands on the ground, he's added another 15 yards for 138 yards. Excuse me, 15 catches for 138 yards and one touchdown on the season as well. But Jalen Lucas is definitely going to be the guy to watch. I think that Maryland defense at front seven. We talked about what they've been able to do, and I think that inside linebacker room, we'll see if they're at full strength this weekend. Posted some notes for Inside the Black and Gold subscribers there, but I just think that the depth and the talent and the physicality and the speed let a lot of these guys have been able to show in terms of filling their gaps at the line of scrimmage. I think that's kind of going to be a point of emphasis, obviously, to kind of limit Lucas and keep this Hoosiers offense one dimensional.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and one of those things to watch this week, if you've looked at the team and looked at the rotation, especially late in the game last week, is what pairing of inside linebackers Maryland kind of picks, who they stick on him. Is this, a spot where they maybe Gavin Gibson's a week better and they can really look at him as a corner, or they want to put Corey Coley out there? and maybe bring Glenn Miller in to kind of draw that one-on-one assignment. I think that would be a perfect combo because he can kind of be that safety linebacker corner hybrid that can lock down a dynamic player like Jalen Lucas. Do we see more of Ruben Hippolyte and Jay Sean Barham out there to limit that? What is the game plan? Because everybody on the Indiana side has got to be thinking between Cam Camper and between Lucas, they got to get those guys 10 plus touches of the ball, outside of the tackle box because they really just haven't been able to see that true inside running game that Walt Bell's always looked to really jumpstart his offense.
I think that's fair, and I think one combo that I think probably two guys are probably a little bit more forgotten. I think Fanaja Gote, I think he's a little bit more known, but compared to Jeremy Spraggins, who I think a lot of people kind of looked at him and said, maybe he's kind of on the outside looking in. He's been able to find the field a lot. Obviously, Mike Harris, I think he's the first couple weeks of the season, he was able to kind of flash as another inside backer there. But again, I just think that the overall that talent and depth there will be good. And Caleb Wheatland, he's another guy who's been able to kind of make his impact and presence felt. Definitely, I think last week if memory serves correct, he ended up grading as the top tackler against Michigan State. So again, he's another guy that's definitely will help in run support and kind of limiting Lucas there. But again, I think if Maryland's able to stop the run and force Damon Jackson to beat you with his decision making in his fourth career start, I think that's kind of why I feel a little bit confident in Maryland's defense here.
Yeah, I would agree on that. My number to kind of watch is how many turnovers Maryland can force, how quickly. No, I would like to see how quickly they can put the game away. I'm not really sure they've shown me much that will allude to that actually happening, but we'll see. Um, Ahmed, Vegas has the number 14 to 14 and a half, depending on where you look on it. DraftKings still has it as Terps a 14-point favorite. FanDuel 14 and a half over under on the game. Hasn't moved really at all. 50 and a
No.
half, same number that it came out as. Where do you see it?
Yes, I actually kept looking back, each day, see if the spread changed at all, even half point in either direction. And every time I've been looking at DraftKings, it's stayed at that 14 steady. I think Maryland's going to cover. I actually was looking at kind of just to see if there were player props today that are available, things like that. And always look at that, like the winning margin. I like the Maryland to win by, I believe it was the 18 to 24 bucket. I think I'm kind of comfortable with that. I just think that Maryland will be able to take advantage. Or I think it was 13-18, excuse me, 13-18, and that's the one I'm going to end up picking, just because I think Maryland will be able to attack. I think Indiana, they have the big play potential. Jalen Lucas, it isn't the first time. Virginia, for example, when you went into that week 3 matchup, Virginia did not really show much going into that they could run the ball consistently or efficiently, but the first couple drives, they were able to find some success. So would Indiana find any success under Walt Bell's cute play calling? Do they find a big player or two and maybe able to turn in a red zone touchdown, or Maryland's defense is able to hold them to 3? So I could see Indiana being able to get to the scoreboard. Now, am I confident that Indiana scores 2 touchdowns? No. Do I could see them maybe getting a touchdown, field goal? Yeah. But I just think that Maryland over a 60-minute stretch, I think they're more talented, and I think the experience also plays a big role. And being back at home, I think those are all kind of factors there. So I like Maryland to end up covering in this. Might shy away from the over under just because again I'm less confident in Indiana's offense, what they can do. I just think it's going to be play here and there. It's not going to be a sustained success for them, is my expectation at least. And I could see Maryland being able to get 3, maybe 4 touchdowns. I think the Maryland over under touchdown was 3.5. Was debating about that, but I could see the over hitting on that.
I would pretty much have to agree with that one spot on. I think the Terps roll in this game. I think they come out early strong. I liked what I saw from the defense early, being able to force the turnovers last week. You already mentioned it. Young quarterback, fourth start, really first true road game. That's another thing to point out. They were home against Ohio State early, home against Indiana State, neutral site when they played Louisville at Lucas Oil, and then back home for Akron. So Big Ten game, road game. Maryland's going to be keyed in on the run early. It's just like we mentioned in the post game pod, safety is not getting pulled down into the box and biting on the run early because look, if you're a coordinator and you're trying to think what easy kind of big plays can I get to jumpstart my offense, you're almost thinking, run, play action, or the flea flicker look. I think is kind of expired against Maryland. They might be looking for that in the first drive. It's just can you score consistently? They might get an early score or two, like you said, touchdown, a field goal, 10 points somewhere in the first 24 minutes or so of game time. After that, just like every other game, I think Indiana is going to struggle to move the ball. I like the under in this game. If I had to pick one, like you, I would say shy away from it, and I like the Terps easily by the 14. Might even look at some of those alternate spreads that will be out on the game. Uh, come Saturday. Those are always kind of what I've been keying in on recently. Find those
Yeah.
alternate lines where you can get the positive odds on the teams that and pick them well, because those are some hard numbers to hit sometimes.
Yeah, they definitely are. I think it'll be kind of interesting. It'll be interesting. I think it was last matchup when Indiana, I think it was the Carlos Carrier touchdown. Memory serves correct. He
Yep.
was the one. I think I've told the story before, but on that last Carlos Carrier touchdown, there was I guess a GA that found that like there was an Indiana beat writer that posted that Indiana was working on like some specific like package or formation, something like that. And he posted about it on like his message board or forum, whatever it was. And Maryland saw that and they had a play installed just in case that they saw that look. And then Indiana ended up showing that look. Maryland called out of an audible. Uh, Take Carlos Carey. So if you look back on that touchdown, I think it was the second touchdown because I think it was a 100-yard career game for him. Carlos Carey was wide open on that, and it ended up being a win, giving Maryland that sixth win to kickstart that bowl streak. So it's crazy how things come full circle like that. So don't think it'll end up needing to be that close, like we kind of talked about throughout, but definitely expect Maryland chance to pick up win number 5 and possibly move to into the top 25.
Yeah, we'll see on that. I'm not too sold on the top 25, and just you called it out earlier, so I'll throw them out there. Maryland's over for this one, 30.5, Indiana 17.5. So those are your two uh, points predictions for the score according to Vegas. So Vegas right now leaning on the points wise, that it's right at that 14 number, but sort of leaning Indiana with it being a 13 spread on the over under and scoring.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see just kind of how it shakes out. But yeah, I think Maryland will get a chance to create and continue that momentum at home this weekend.
Yeah, quick look at the Big Ten schedule this week. Some tough ones in the noon window. Penn State heads to Northwestern. Northwestern picking up an impressive win last week at home against Minnesota, but I think the Nittany Lions got a roll going on. Minnesota playing a homecoming game. I believe it's against the University of Louisiana Lafayette, or just University of Louisiana this week. Michigan heads to Nebraska. Illinois is at Purdue. Wagner's at Rutgers. There's your headliner. And Michigan State heads to Iowa in the NBC night game. Anything catch your eye? Kind of a lame weekend of Big Ten football.
Yeah, I think Michigan, Nebraska. I think it'll be kind of interesting. Nebraska's been really a couple key injuries, especially at running back. That rotation is looking real thin right now. But it'll be the first real, I guess they play Colorado, but first big conference game for Nebraska, especially at home. So we'll be kind of interested to see how they fare. I think Penn State's gonna roll Northwestern. But other than that, I mean, I haven't even looked at the Michigan State Iowa game, and I just kind of want to take the under on it, just out of instinct.
Yeah, I believe that number is 31.5.
Yeah,
So,
oh, man, that is so low. That's so low. Yeah, I
yeah,
still might take it though. But
I
another
don't know.
thing that actually stuck out.
Something tells me one of those teams is scoring 21 and one of them scoring like 13 or something like
Uh,
that. Like,
I don't know. I mean, do you have confidence that Iowa's going to score at least 13 points or Michigan
After my
State?
comments about Iowa football last week on this show, I don't think that I should talk about them, because I had them with the cover, and that was a brutal Saturday night in Happy Valley for Cade McNamara. I mean,
Yeah,
every drop back he was getting hit. That was just a ugly game for Iowa.
yeah. That that Penn State defense is they are legit. They have multiple NFL players on that side of the ball.
Yeah, definitely would agree with that. Ahmed, anything to add?
Yeah, I just think again, I think Maryland should be able to kind of take care of business this weekend. think this is kind of what every fan was looking for these first 5 weeks of the season, to just kind of generate that momentum and going into that first test against one of the Big Ten elite next weekend. So again, I think Maryland will get a chance to kind of maintain that momentum, kind of iron out the kinks, and we'll see what the offensive line looks like if they kind of keep that same starting five as last week. Corey Bullock was a guy who didn't play, or he wasn't um, on the field at practice earlier this week. So does he end up going back in, and how does that line look going into the Buckeyes matchup? So think it'll be really interesting. But with family weekend around the corner, definitely looking forward to seeing how Maryland fares.
Yeah, it should be a fun day out at CQ Stadium. Looks like it's going to easily be the biggest crowd of the season to this point, as Ahmed mentioned. Family weekend. You'll catch me at the Old Line tailgate before the game. Always happy to support their mission. They have a bunch of kids coming out to the game this weekend, and we'll be back on our post game pod live from CQ, or you'll catch it recorded, but we'll be live from CQ, recording it right after Mike Loxley and the players are available. So make sure to check back for that on Saturday night. It will be up. And as always, check in to Inside the Black and Gold for all of those VIP notes and updates that Ahmed's got on the site as the Terps welcome in Indiana to CQ. For Ahmed Gafir, I am Mason Viner. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks, folks.